Today we're going to talk about information asymmetry. What is information asymmetric? Here's one sort of famous example, which is known as the market for lemons. Here we're not talking about the fruit market. Instead, we're talking about used car market. And lemons here refers to that used car with hidden defects. So if you go to the used car market and try to get a used car, there's a great uncertainty regarding the quality of the car. Okay? And there may be many lemons, bad used car with low quality there. Among them, there might be some peach, which is here would be sweet and refer to good used car without much problems, okay? As compared to the sour lemons. It's called the market for lemons because the one who come up with the initial idea refer to those bad used car as lemons, and the economist who come up with the idea is George Akerlof in the 1970s, and it turned out that this idea, although it is simple, revolutionized economics, and for that he, amongst other people, who's what we will talk about today, got the Nobel Prize in economics in 2001. Okay, so think about a used car market with two kind of cars. Right? One kind of cars is the good used car with good quality, no major problem, no hidden defects. Okay? For that kind of car, buyers is willing to pay $30,000 for it, and the seller of that kind of car is willing to sell it for $25,000. Right? So here we have buyer valuing the car more than the seller, and so that could be a mutually beneficial trade. Okay. On the other hand, there are bad used car. Okay, and if the car have low quality, buyers still want to buy it, but only value it at $10,000 for the used car. Seller is willing to sell a low quality used car at $5,000. But again, buyers' willingness to pay is larger than the value of the car to the seller, so that could be a mutually beneficial trade between them. Okay. The problem in this market is that there's information asymmetry. In particular, what it means is seller knows the car's quality, but the buyer does not. Okay. So the buyer and the seller, both of them know that 50% of the cars in the used car market are good used car, and 50% of them are bad used car. But when we talk about one particular car, whether it's good or bad, only the seller know about the quality. The buyer will have no idea beyond that there's a 50% chance this is good and 50% chance this is bad. Okay, so information asymmetric between the seller and the buyer. And let's see what happened then, right? So the buyer, not knowing whether he or she is buying a good used car or bad used car, is only willing to pay for the expected value of the car, right? Half the car is good, so half times 30, and half the car is bad, so half times 10. And so the buyer is willing to pay up to $20,000 for a car with uncertain quality. Okay, but if that is the case, right, the seller is not willing to sell its car if its car is a good used car, right? So because a seller with a good used car valued the car at $25,000. So the seller of a good used car would say, no, I'm not going to sell it. And what happened is we are left with that used car, the lemons, in the used car market, right? So again, notice that if there's symmetric information, if both buyer and seller know whether they're buying or selling a good used car or a bad one, then regardless whether the car has good quality or bad quality, there could be a mutually beneficial trade. But the problem is with asymmetric information, we have market failure. And this kind of phenomenon is known as adverse selection. Usually when we think about selection, we think about picking the good one. Right? In this context, in this example, the opposite happened. Right? The good used car seller dropped out of the market. Okay? And therefore, we are left with lemons in the market. Okay? So there's a missing market for the good used car. There's a market failure because of this kind of information asymmetry. Okay? So that sort of explains that what we often see, which is when a used car, when a new car got sold, its value dropped the moment it is sold. Right? And the drop in value is not due to normal depreciation. Right? If it sort of, usually we think about depreciation as pretty gradually. It can't be that the moment it's sold, it suddenly depreciates a lot. Right? So from the data, this is sort of a picture from a consumer sort of website. Over time, the values, the resale value of a car drop, and that reflects in part depreciation, but it dropped much quicker at the beginning, and so part of it would reflects this kind of transaction cost, right, from the asymmetric information, from the adverse selection we just talked about, and some people call this lemon penalty. Right? And to sort of test this seminal idea by George Akerlof, recently there's a number of researchers, Richard Bundell, along with other people, they get some really good data from Denmark, and they estimate the lemons effect, or the lemon penalty. So what they look at is, well, how would the average value of a used car change over time? So this year to when the car was new and got purchased it, and then as years go by, ownership duration increase. Not surprisingly, the average value of a used car drop, right, as a percentage of the new car, right. So this is the sort of upper curve, but they also look at the price at which dealer purchase used car, right? And again, not surprisingly, the purchase price drop as the car get older and so on. But there's a gap between these two. When the ownership years is like 6 years or 7 years, the gap is pretty small. It just give a small profit for the dealer. But at the beginning, in the first couple years, there's a large gap. And in particular, they estimate that the lemons penalty is about 18% of the price of a new car in the first year of the ownership. Right? So the drop in resale value reflects the lemon penalty, the information asymmetric inherent in the used car market when we have this adverse selection problem. Okay, and I think that's give really nice sort of empirical support from the data, illustrating the issue of adverse selection in the used car market.